This is a crazy situation. Rivals is not a flash in the pan. And a month back, that's what people were saying. Like, Marvel Rivals, yes, it has big numbers, but that's because it's a free game. That's because people are pissed at Overwatch. It will crater, people will not be retained. That is not the case. The player retention for this game is absolutely goddamn staggering. I think this really girthy looking Steam chart makes that pretty damn clear. And somehow that actually got bigger. That's because Season 1 has drawn in so many people that it surpassed its launch peak, which is kind of crazy. Now, this is a game that launched overtly designed for the business model that it has, unlike NetEase's other hero shooter, which is called Overwatch 2. I joke. Basically, NetEase did used to manage Overwatch 2 in China. The deal fell apart, but the deal's back again, and I think in 2 months, Overwatch 2 is returning to China. And I don't bring that game up purely to bash it. No, the comparison is relevant. These are games that are directly competing with each other, same genre, same market. And it's pretty damn clear that the overtly, I think, less competitive-focused Rivals is capturing a broad audience, perhaps even the broad audience that Overwatch kind of famously lost. At least right now, Rivals is stomping on the others, but the devs do see a little trouble on the horizon. But first I gotta talk about Season 1. So, 644,000 players. That is a lot for your peak concurrency, and it resulted from a perfect storm, because Season 1 launched early January, right when Apex, Overwatch, and Fortnite were in their mid-season, and of course, in a dearth of major releases. And do you know what's funny? This is the same window that Palworld launched into last year. I don't know, is there something to this launch window, early January just being a time where people are hungry for games? Anyway, it wasn't just the timing, it was also content, because Season 1 is goddamn huge. Now bear in mind, right, Rivals has launched with 33 heroes. Season 1 is adding 4 heroes, 2 of them are here right now. There's Invisible Woman, a support healer, and Mr. Fantastic, who is a lightly tanky DPS, and then we'll be getting the Thing and Human Torch in the mid-season update. Overall, that amount of characters is a staggering amount of gameplay, and I've an ever so slight suspicion that the evil Invisible Woman skin will sell quite a few copies. But it wasn't just that, there's also maps. There's a bunch of them. They're set in New York. There's Midtown for the control mode, Sanctum Sanatorium for a basically like their spin on Deathmatch, and then Central Park, which is going to be coming in the mid-season update. And actually, that's kind of the neat bit, because all these maps are tied into the season's vampire theme, and that vampire theme is something that is based on a comic event that happened only last summer. So they really do have their finger in the pulse here, and it's a great example of them getting natural season themes, ones that don't feel like they're just forced randomly or out of brand collaborations. So you got those clear wins, but then experientially, man, this is such a sticky game. It is so easy to pick up, it's visually rich, it's polished, it's damn fun. Kind of find it hard to stop playing, honestly. It's also then rare for a game to have so much gameplay content hit during the honeymoon period, right? Before the meta sweatiness sets in, which is one of the things that Overwatch has very, very long struggled with. But of course, honeymoons do end, and the game's director is signaling not to expect as much next time. But games do not release in vacuums. We've got to see first what the competition releases to see if this game is going to be able to keep pace. Rather obviously, Rivals is an Overwatch clone more than Overwatch was a Team Fortress 2 clone, but its differences are welcome. They actually do represent iteration in the format. I think it's telling, though, that the early trailers for Rivals were honestly, like, at least to my memory, they were resoundingly mocked, because people just thought, oh my god, branded slop Overwatch clone. But hands-on gameplay has completely shut that down because it's damn fun. I mean, hell, even the Rivals rumors are hitting hard. Like, there was a rumor for PvE, which, of course, exploded, especially in the Overwatch community, because, it's the thing that they really wanted and didn't get. So it's perfect, free word-of-mouth marketing based on your opponent's failure. And again, I don't bring this up to beat an Overwatch, but it is to make a point, because this is a real comparison that people have got to make when they're choosing a game. Even take the Battle Pass. So the Rivals one has got 10 skins, Overwatch has got 5, plus enough prisms for a mythic skin. Now, in Rivals, you earn $8 of currency back from your $10 pass. In Overwatch, it's $6 worth, that is. But here's what's far more important. If you buy the Rivals Pass, it does not expire, which is unlike Overwatch, which very much does expire, and that makes all the difference, especially in how aggressive the business model is on the player, because here's what Overwatch does to you. Remember, the big ticket item is the mythic prisms. You get 80 prisms in the pass. You see otherwise, right? Otherwise, you have got to buy those prisms $1. $1 per prism. So if you fall behind in your Battle Pass chores, you are, as an example, missing out on, say, $40 worth of mythic prisms. That is extremely hostile to the customer. And here's Rivals not doing that. And the comparison actually gets worse, because yes, Rivals does let you buy a more expensive pass that's got skips in it, right? Just like Overwatch does. But on top of that, Overwatch has got a further bundle where that bundle has got exclusive legendary skins that you cannot get anywhere else. Rivals quite simply doesn't do that. And yes, I know that this is not a fair comparison from a developer's perspective. Overwatch 2 was pretty much an accident of a game and how it happened, and its absurd, like, multi-layered hell business model is that of an aged game that is clearly more focused on revenue per user than user growth. But guess who that doesn't matter to? The prospective customer who can just move from Overwatch to Rivals and have Rivals today feel significantly less hellish. And while loads of Overwatch players do play on Battle.net, Steam does at least give us an indication of trends, and the player numbers really aren't great. But is Rivals only competitive because it's a sugar rush with a bloated Season 1 with too much content to be sustainable? What has the director warned us of? So here's the deal. The game director did interviews, and put simply, he said that every month and a half there will be a new hero. And he said that full seasons will see, quote, fresh seasonal stories, new maps, and new heroes. Now, each season for this game will last 3 months, so basically my read here is we're getting similar to Season 1, but 1 hero at launch, 1 mid-season, rather than 2 each. Which, honestly, is still completely mad. I mean, that is still 1 hero every 6 weeks. 6 bloody weeks, that is insane. For context here, Overwatch 2 gets a new hero every 16 weeks. That's a very different rate of new heroes. And as for maps, I've got to imagine it will be similar to Season 1. I mean, he said maps, which does suggest plural. And as for what those maps will be, well, if this season is anything to go by, they'll all be tied together with the season theme, which, to be honest, is a really compelling way to do it, as opposed to other games, like, say, the world of Overwatch, where the season themes are basically fractured between the Battle Pass, the store events, the legendary skins that you can only get if you purchase the Battle Pass bundle that costs $40, and then, of course, whatever brand collabs they throw into it. It's quite nice for Rivals that, well, look, I expect there probably will be brand collabs at some stage, but it's comics. They pretty much have infinite material to pull from. And so once again, even if it's not a fair comparison, it is the comparison that consumers will be making. Now, look, I would be a fool to trust Rivals, NetEase, fully that, they won't get egregious in the future, but at least for now, this game is competitively positioned. Which is why I'm actually glad that they're planning for a sustainable pace, because whenever I saw that Season 1 had 4 heroes, I kind of thought like, right, so your game design challenge is a new hero every 3 weeks. That's what that rate would have been. That's completely unsustainable. That's why I'm glad that it's 1 hero every 6 weeks, which, yes, is 50% slower, but still multiple times faster than the competition. And part of why I'm glad is that, realistically, not all has been perfect with this game. There have been issues, a few of which are actually kind of foundational. As an example, if you have got high FPS, you could, be doing more damage than other people because of how actions are tied to frame rate, which is completely insane, but oddly balanced because actually also people with higher FPSs were invoking a bug that sometimes increased server latency, which is a bit weird. There's also that if you lose too many matches in a row, you can be placed against bots, which some people, don't like. I suppose there's a bit of dead internet theory going on there. And then there's cultural disagreements. One of them is modding. Players want modding. NetEase obviously does not want modding. But perhaps most of all, role queue. Now, role queue is the kind of thing that defined Overwatch, and it is something that many people legitimately wanted for, like, game balance, competitive integrity, even just having the rule set be locked down so that it's more manageable from, like, a balancing perspective. But at least so far, NetEase are still giving a firm no. So it very much seems role queue is not going to be happening. Now, there are many other things as well. As an example, game balance. That is going to be extremely hard when they're releasing so many characters. And yeah, there is like a competitive mode. I think it's just going to be a question of what are they comfortable with? Will they have a development ethos that is a bit closer to Blizzard's, which, to be honest, quite often does kind of reek of fear, which is kind of understandable. It can be hard to manage a large game. And there is another thing, which is also something Overwatch has ran into, and that is balancing skin output. When you've got this many characters, how do you actually keep all of your players happy. Like, you gotta balance your skin output. And certainly if you like, say, Mercy, Tracer, Reinhardt, Kiriko, oh boy, they've got skins for days. But maybe some other characters that you might like, well, they just don't seem to be the characters that sell skins, so less skins get made. And that's the kind of thing that actually can really quite piss off a game community. And so where we stand right now basically is, man, this is Rivals' game to lose. The player concurrency retention that we are seeing is absolutely goddamn mad. It'll be fascinating to see how it shakes out. And if you want another story, you gotta check out the Apex one. It is a perfect example of just death by 1,000 cuts and how a game slowly loses touch with its community.